Hey, what's up? This is Ron from StepWise Media, and we're going to continue our tutorial series, and now we're going to look at, this is part 2, if you haven't looked at the previous tutorials, installing Java. What we're going to look at now is actually installing the Android SDK tools, the Software Development Kit tools, onto our Windows machine. And real simple, the SDK tools are going to let you target a particular platform, so we're just going to Google Android SDK tools. And that's going to take us right to the Android developers website, and it's hosted by Google. And we're at the SDK Tools website, and we're just going to click the link, and we're at developer.android.com/SDK index, and we're going to target whatever, we're using Windows 7. We're going to target whatever platform that we're using to download the SDK tools, and it's recommended to download the executable file. Especially for Windows, because this does install not only the Android SDK tools, but the Android SDK Tools Manager. So download the .exe file for Windows instead of the zip file, the package that's hosted on the Android developers website. And it's going to take a few moments for that to download. And like I'd mentioned, if you haven't already installed Java on your system, you're going to want to go ahead and install Java. Otherwise, you will get an error message during this install that tells you that you have to install Java. So if you haven't done that yet, go back to our previous tutorial, install the JDK on your system. And we're at the Android developer website downloading the installer for the Android SDK tools, and that's just about finished. So we're going to close that download window out, and it's going to go to my downloads folder. So I'm just going to drag that over to the desktop real quick in downloads, dragging the installer over to the desktop so we can take a better look at it. And very important that you install this as an administrator, so you're going to right-click Run as Administrator when you install this package. But this is basically going to install all the Android SDK, well, the Android SDK Manager into your system so that you can download tools for specific Android platforms. Let's say you're developing applications for Gingerbread, which is 2.3, Honeycomb, which is 3.0. You're going to be able to target specific builds when you install various SDKs on your system. So that's installing. We right-clicked, Run as Administrator, and it's saying that setup has completed successfully. We're going to start the SDK Manager and click Finish. And don't be alarmed if yours doesn't look exactly like mine. I've already installed the SDK Manager and downloaded various SDK platforms for my system. So basically what I did was I reinstalled it, but it's still going to bring up the tools that I had previously installed. So the first time you run the Android SDK Manager, it's going to bring a list of all the platforms that are available for Android development, from 1.6 all the way up to 4.0.3, which is currently API 13. And just like I had mentioned, if yours doesn't look like this, yours might say not installed. And at some point, what you're going to want to do is install all the various tools, and pay careful attention to the extras, because there are, if you do develop applications that include Google AdMob support, or if you're targeting a specific platform, you're going to want to download not only the documentation, the SDK platform, but also the examples that are included, because there are some really nice examples included with the various SDK platforms. At the bare minimum, you're probably going to want to install 2.1, which will target devices, approximately 97% of the devices that are out there now. But at some point you're going to want to take the time to download the various platforms for not only 2.1 but 2.3.3, which is Gingerbread, Honeycomb, which is the new tablet, 3.0, all the way back to Eclair, Froyo, and the earlier releases of the Android SDKs. And with each platform that you target, you want to make sure that you not only download the SDK platform, but also the samples for that particular SDK. And I did misspeak earlier. I'd mentioned API 13. It's actually API 15, which is Android 4.0.3. But you're going to want to download the various SDK platforms and the tools. And if you are targeting a particular device that has an Android SDK, for instance, if you have a Kyocera phone or a Motorola phone, there are some particular SDK tools available for particular devices as well. So if you do have to target a particular device, make sure that you download those as well. And what I did was I had one update available, so I'm just going to install that single update. That's for 4.0.3. But you can install pretty much any and every package that's available, and you're also going to want to make sure that you install some of the extras if you ever need to install or create an application that has advertisements for mobile. For instance, Google AdMob support. There is an SDK for that. And it does take a bit to install various platforms, so you're going to want to take the time to go ahead and make sure that you install each and every one or any that are applicable for your particular situation. But in this case, I've pretty much gone through over time and installed all of the various SDKs that are available. And we're just going to go back into our program files directory, and we're going to see where that was installed. Program files x86, Android, Android-SDK. And once you install some of those various platforms, they will appear under your platform tools paths. And the other thing that it's neat, the SDK tools do also include the Avd Manager, which is the Android Virtual Device Manager. And we'll get to that in a future tutorial, but basically that allows you to launch various virtual devices or emulators on your system.